Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend John Obolewski. And today, a wonderful surprise. John, how are you today?
Hey, Jim, I'm doing well. Good to be with you, and I'm super excited to have Greg Surratt with us for today and next week. And Greg is the founding pastor of Seacoast Church in South Carolina, and also the co-founder of ARC, the Association of Related Churches. And Greg, we're just delighted to have you on the podcast with us today.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Really am. Consider it a privilege to have you as a friend, a
Mhm.
cold weather friend.
Yeah, cold weather friend. There you go. Yeah, Greg was up in Michigan in January this year,
Oh,
and it was really cold and snowy. And I told him he has to come up to Michigan in July or August when
yeah.
the best weather is. So, Greg, yeah, thank you for being here with us today. We know you could be doing a lot of other things. Excited to get to talk with you about a little bit about yourself, but really want to talk about pastors
Hmm.
and their well-being. So, Greg, we ask every one of our guests the same first question. We want to know, how did you come to Christ? Tell us a little bit about your conversion story.
Well, I grew up in a pastor's home. I'm third generation pastor, so you kind of were born saved. Uh, but but so I was in church all my life, and I know at a real young age, I made a profession of faith in Christ and all that. But when it really stuck for me was when I was graduating from high school, and you kind of have to figure it out on your own. And I really looked at all the spirituality that was going on at the time. To date myself a little bit, but the Beatles were all into Eastern religion, and you had all kinds of different things going on. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna start from zero and let's see where we go. And I
Mhm.
actually ended up reading a book uh, called Josh McDowell, I think, Evidence That Demands a Verdict.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just researched that, read it, went through all of those things. And at some point in the middle of that, decided I don't understand a lot of things, but there's two things I think I know. I think there is a God. I know there's a God. And, it takes more faith not to believe that there's a God than it does to believe there's a God. I believe there's a God, and I believe that Jesus is who he said he was. And that was my kind of, let's put it all in and follow God. And I don't know much more than that these days, even when I really think about it. We can argue about a lot of stuff, but there's a couple of things I'm real close-minded on. And that's those two things. And so once I made that commitment, then I started telling all my friends around me about that. And it's kind of where it took off from there.
And
Yeah.
speaking of that, like telling all your friends around you, it's kind of the next question would be that call of God, because there's a lot of believers that sell shoes and build cars and are
Hmm.
farmers, but God's call on your life was to vocational ministry. It's not an uncommon question we get working with a lot of young people. How do you know? How do you know that you're called? So in your case, how did you know that this was for you? You talk about a pastor's home, but I sometimes I think that might play against somebody believing they're
Yeah,
going to be a pastor because you saw it. You were on the inside of what happens in a pastor's home, and that your
right.
ministry was a decision you made at some point. Tell us about that.
Well, in my background was Pentecostal Assemblies of God, and which I'm grateful for. But my dad was you know, um, preach the paint off the walls Pentecostal preacher, and I have never been that. Even these days, I want it's amazing to me that anybody even listens, because I talk slow and I don't yell very loud and all of that kind of thing. But where it kind of came together for me was crazy. I wanted to be a rock star. That was my goal in life. And in fact, if you were to look in this office where I'm at right now, I got guitars on the wall, and kind of a music lover, and had a band and played after I graduated from high school. After I was going through all of these, where am I? What do I believe? That type thing.
Mhm.
And we were playing 6 weeks in Chicago, about 4 nights a week. And I did an event that was a large youth rally. And normally, what we would do at the end of a service of concert is, you put your instruments down, you walk off and go behind the screen and hope that they clap real hard so that you come back out and do an encore. And at this event, we knew it was a church youth event, about 1,000 kids. And the band said, "Hey, we should say something at the end." I said, "Great. Who should say it?" And they said, "Well, you should." And I said, "Well, why me?" "Well, your dad's a preacher."
Mm.
I don't know what that meant. I was following Jesus, but from a little bit of a distance at that point.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the whole thing, I said some things, and it was an amazing experience. Probably the first time in
Mhm.
my life I sensed God using me, His presence on
Mm.
me in a
Wow.
way that I didn't expect, wasn't prepared for by any means. And so I called my girlfriend afterwards, who later became my wife. I've been chasing her for 50 years. And so I said to her, I said, I just, I didn't want to talk marriage. She always wanted to talk that stuff. And I was like, I don't want to talk about any of that. And I said, if you're thinking about marrying, rock and roll music and all of that, something happened to me tonight
Mhm.
that was very unique. And my life might take a different turn. I don't know. And she said, I kind of knew anyway. They always do. But
Wow.
honestly, that was like a call. When I spoke, people listened, and I never experienced that before. And so I
Mm.
thought, well, maybe God is going to use me in that way. And that's probably, I don't know if God can call you in the midst of a rock concert or anything like that, but
I believe he can.
I think he
Yes.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting story. And Greg, I know a little bit more about your story since we've become friends. Tell us a little bit about your marketplace experience.
Yeah.
Um, because I think I really wanted to hear from you, like how that, if it all, influenced your vocational ministry, so to speak. Could you speak to that a little bit? Tell us a little bit about that part of your journey, and then maybe what, if anything, was influential from that world in ministry world and church world for you.
Yeah. Well, I thought if I'm going to be in any kind of ministry, I need to go to Bible college. And so I went and I got kicked out. And so that didn't work well for me a couple of times. And so I ended up working for Hewlett Packard Company, making computers. We were in research and development, which meant nothing that we did worked, but it was all a big idea. And I can remember when Mr. Packard or Mr. Hewlett, I can't remember which one, came and talked to us one time and said, there is going to be what you're working on right now. We were working on what they call the desktop computer program. And he said, someday there's going to be a desktop computer in every home.
Mhm.
And I was like, really? There's not any in any homes right now. And these things don't even work right now.
Wow.
I mean, we're working
Wow.
on it. But yeah, that was amazing. And I don't know. I don't know how I other than I'm a tech guy that is always frustrated because what I want to do is usually it's called the bleeding edge, not the leading edge. And I've been that way all my life. But we're figuring out how to use technology even now in what we do. And John, behind the scenes, you've seen some of my bleeding edge, failures, or they're not failures, they're just stuff that are leading us to be successful at some
Right.
point. Yeah,
Right. We just found 1,000 ways not to invent the incandescent light bulb, right? To quote
exactly.
Edison. That's
That's
that's what
it.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things you have, Greg, from your perspective and the retreat ministry you have for pastors, you've got access to a lot of stories. A lot of guys come in, a lot of ladies come in, and they're,
Yeah.
it isn't a survey, it isn't a, some sort of a poll that was taken. These are people you
For
hear,
real.
and your team hears these stories. So as you look at the landscape of pastors today, what are you seeing? Like, could you just, this is two things. One is, I think somebody listening is going to realize that they're not that unusual, that what they're going through may be more common than they experience. But then other questions that come out of this, and then what do we do about what you know? So what do you see?
Well, we're all pretty well familiar by now with the Barna survey that 42% of pastors would indicate that they are in some form of burnout. And his question basically asked, would you quit if you could? And 42% say yes. Interestingly enough, it's been my privilege over the last 3 years to sit down up close and personal for like 3 to 4 days at a time with almost 2,000 pastors. So I'm nobody, but I don't know anybody else that's sat down eye to eye with that many pastors for that long. So we're, like you said, it's more than statistics. There are names behind all of it. And our surveys tell us the same thing, same numbers. Okay. I thought they would go down. They really haven't. And what is burnout? Obviously there's tiredness in there. There's cynicism. We get cynical about what we do, because of a lot of things. Pastors, one story I hear all the time is church hurt. We talk about church hurt, how pastors hurt congregational people, and that does happen from time to time. But it's also epidemic on the other side. Everybody has a story of somebody that walked away, said something, did something. There's betrayal. And sometimes it's not even betrayal. Sometimes it's the normal ebb and flow of life. But you make close relationships, and then they're gone. I talked to a guy last night and he almost apologizing for it. Well, really, I said, no, don't apologize. We're relational creatures. It hurts. You are grieving, and that's okay. And pastors don't have anybody to talk to about it. You don't get up, hopefully you don't get up and preach on the weekend about, how you're mad at this one, that one, or the other one, or this, although some guys probably do that. And they feel like, and so we stuff it in and we get cynical about everybody and everything. We also, burnout causes, or part of the indicators of burnout is you feel like you're not making a difference. You look at Elijah, in the Old Testament, the classic case, and he has his great victory, and then he wants to kill himself, and God comes to him and talks to him, and he said, "You know what? I'm the only one." That's how good I am. That's what a great job I'm doing is there's nobody listening, and obviously God told him that wasn't true, but you hear it with pastors all the time, unmet expectations. In fact, the biggest issues that we do a big survey at the end of our week at the retreat. We talk about that, but the number one issue, and it depends on the size of the church, the order, but the number one issue is the stress of the job.
Yeah.
It's just a stressful job. It's Peter Drucker, the business consultant, said that being a megachurch pastor was one of the 3 or 4 toughest jobs in America, and went through all about why. And the only thing I disagree with him on, because I am, well, I guess I'm not so much anymore, but I've been a megachurch pastor. I've been a small church pastor. I've been every size in between. And it was a lot easier being a megachurch pastor than it was a small church pastor, because as a small church pastor, you have to do it all. If somebody doesn't show up on the weekend, suddenly you're the expert in that area, and you're doing all the pastoral care and all that kind of thing. And so it's a stressful job, big time stressful job. And then isolation and loneliness is the second issue. We isolate for a lot of reasons. some of it's what we just talked about, to cover our heart because we don't want it to get crushed again. We have that.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own sin that we're dealing with because the expectation is that we're perfect and none of us are. And so we don't want anybody to find out that we're less than perfect. And so we isolate. And there's just a lot of reasons. The third one is unmet expectations. And that's part of why we isolate too. We feel ashamed. I'm just not as good, or maybe I'm a failure, and we have these expectations. With the retreat that I have, the church planting movement I've been a part of wanted to send all of their church planters to the retreat just before they plant their first church. And I said, no, they're bulletproof before they plant a church. They know what they're going to do. Give them a year. They'll get a little herd under their belt, a real life. And then we're ready. Then we're ready. That's a long answer. I'm sorry, but I'm passionate about these things.
That's a good answer.
About church planters. They let them. They still believe in Santa. Give them a year, until they really realize what they've gotten themselves into.
Exactly.
Greg, exactly. You said something in your answer that kind of caught my attention, and it's this whole grief piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think that pastors serve as first responders in many ways,
mm-hmm.
And the pandemic amped that up at a very high level, and there was a lot of loss through the pandemic, loss of relationships, loss of people, loss of a lot of things, some loss of life. And I wonder if part of the burnout issue is not grieving loss.
Oh, it is.
Big and small. And in many ways, I think burnout is death by 1,000 cuts. It's just one cut, small cut here, small cut there. And I think depending on which generation you are, you're either told, you just grow up, be a man, what are you crying about type of approach to it. And I think what I've noticed is that there's not a good mechanism for pastors to express grief over loss. Yeah. And I wonder what your thought is on that, if you see that as a contributing factor to what's going on with leaders.
Without a doubt. With pastors, Sunday still comes every 7 days. It's just amazing how regular that is. And, you're up to bat every Sunday or most Sundays, and you've got to be the man of God with the word of God, and God comes through, and, it's amazing. But then you've got to, if you have more than one person, you've got to lead a staff, and, that's during the week. And so you take a bullet, you take a shot, whether that's, talk about COVID just a minute. Carrie Newhoff did a blog, said, how do you lead a church where nobody agrees with anybody about anything, And so you had all of that. You had the political stuff. You had people, saying to you, wow, we didn't realize that you wouldn't stand up to this, that, or the other. You didn't post, or you did post, and we're leaving. And so, it's a shot, and it's like, oh, wow, there's a friend. And, oh, by the way, listen, if you're listening to this, if you're a church of 50, it hurts when somebody leaves. If you're a church of 500, it hurts when somebody leaves. If you're a church of 5,000, it hurts when somebody leaves. I haven't been to 50,000 yet, but I've been to a whole lot of levels, and it just does. We're relational creatures. But we stuff it inside because we've got to get up next Sunday. We got to lead a staff during the week, or it could be a loss of a life. I've lost my best friend in ministry twice now, and I've lost a best friend more than that, but best friend in ministry twice. And I find myself looking at people that I'm close to now, wondering, well, how long will they be around? And that can be relationally, that can be physically, that can be all those things. And we just stuff it in and we don't process it properly. And one of the
Right.
things that we do at the retreat, I told guys this week that were at the retreat still there, is one of the things some of you need to do is just get out by yourself in nature where it is absolutely beautiful. Our retreat is unreal beautiful.
Yeah.
And you need to get outside in nature and you need to cry a little bit.
Mm,
You need to just go,
interesting.
God, I hurt.
Yeah.
Lament, songs
Yeah.
of lament.
Mhm.
We've got to learn to take time to just pour it out. And then at the end of it, you get up and you pull your pants up just like everybody else does. And
Yeah.
you're more resilient and you're ready for the next fight. But we
That's
do
good.
have to acknowledge what we go through.
Yeah, I love that whole idea of lament. I don't know that the Western culture does that very well.
Mm-mm.
Um, but I like just what you said. It's so easy to follow. Like, give yourself a little bit of space to grieve and
Mhm.
try and
Yeah.
pour out. I mean, the Psalms are full of that
Oh, yeah.
type of writing. So, yeah, I'm glad that we can talk about this because I think that's underreported, actually. The grief part of it
Mm-hmm.
is an underreported contributor, in my mind at least, to burnout. So thanks for taking a few minutes to push up on that with us, Greg.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay to tell God how mad you are. David does that. God, I am just ticked off. It seems like the good guys lose and the bad guys win. And then he
Yeah.
says, but I went into the house of the Lord. I think that's Psalm 73. I went into the house of the Lord. And you get there, but don't
Yeah.
deny that you are there.
Yeah.
Tell God how you feel. He's not surprised. It'd be okay.
Yeah. It almost feels like I have to repent of those feelings first, and then I get to come to God, versus
Yeah.
God being fully present and these feelings being fully present. And it's not a contradiction. That
No,
it's
it's
okay to
not.
feel this in His presence, and what you're saying is actually part of the process to feel this
Absolutely.
in
You
His
feel it.
presence.
That's a
Yeah.
great way of saying it. You feel it in his presence.
Mhm.
And then he's
Yeah.
able to bring healing in whatever way
Yeah.
that he does in his presence. You don't have to dress yourself up to come to Christ. We tell people that every weekend. And yet it's hard for us to do that, right?
Uh,
Well, Greg, we would like to talk a little bit more with you. Will you hang around with us for one more of
month,
these?
a month, maybe 2 months.
Yeah, come on, let's do it.
Yeah. Love
All
it.
right, Jim,
Talking
wrap us
talking
up.
with you is like, it's like getting a hug from somebody, man. I appreciate the heart that God's put inside of you. Very approachable and fun to be with. There are people that are known that I would love to pick their brain, but I wouldn't want to go fishing with them. And I want to pick your brain while we're fishing. So thank
There you
you,
go.
Frank, for sharing that. I know that our audience feels the same way. And just, we're not going to be talking again for another week, but if people wanted to know more about you, how to connect with you and the things that you're doing, how would they find you?
Pastorscollective.com.
Just point to your head. There it is right there on the hat. If
There it
you're
is
watching.
right there.
Yeah, Pastors Collective.
Pastorscollective.com is all about who we are and what we do.
Right on. Thanks, Greg. And John, same thing, same question with you. If people wanted to connect with Converge and hash out some of the stuff we're talking about, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, it's convergecoach.com. And we have a variety of links that you can click on to start a conversation with us. We'll give you a half hour of our time and try to figure out if we can help you in 30 minutes or not for free. And if not, we'll get you the help you need. So that's how to reach us.
So God bless you, our watchers and listeners. It is a joy to be trusted at this level that you would allow us to speak, into your lives, especially at the depth that we're talking about. So we're praying for you. We love you. We're cheering for you. We're in your corner. And we're just asking God to continue to give you the grace to do it again and again and again as you continue to lead from alignment.